The Astra Militarum Cadian Recon Squad. Or maybe it should be called the Brood Brothers Recon Squad. It's an Astra Militarum unit, it's not an abhuman or like a flyer, so we can have it as a Genestealer Cult player in the Brood Brothers Auxilia. The models look like they could be Genestealer cultists. There's a lot of convenient forehead covering. Like the loader guy looks great as a Genestealer cultist with his hat covering his forehead. There's no hair on the head coming out the sides. And he's carrying an explosive. That's a Genestealer cultist. The value that the Genestealer cult will get from the Recon Squad is gonna be limited. A lot of their abilities are about orders. They have a power called long-term memory, where if you issue an order to the unit, it continues to be affected by that order until it's battle shocked, gets a new order, or the battle ends. They can set up a relay beacon, and then officers can issue orders to Imperial Guard units within 6 inches of the beacon. We don't do orders in the Genestealer cult. We do chaos. Except with the Kazakin. They can have orders, but that's because they give themselves an order. There's a video explaining it. The squad's Voxcaster can be used, because that's when you use a stratagem on the unit, you roll a dice, on a 5, you get a command point. So you spent a command point, you gained a command point. That would be the one command point you could gain for the battle round, so if you were able to gain one from an Acolyte squad with mining tools, doing some mining with their tools, it's a maximum of 1 from any source. There are some stratagems they can use. If an enemy sets up a unit in the movement phase from reinforcements, you can use a dark network to have the unit move 6 inches. There's symbiotic destruction, so that when they and one other Genestealer cult unit targets the same enemy, you can reroll wound rolls of 1. There's regimental reinforcements. When the unit's destroyed, roll a dice. On a 3+, you get the unit back. And there's suppress and overwhelm, so that after you've shot with your recon team, the enemy cannot fire Overwatch at you. The problem is, and this is especially for 11th edition, the shooting is in the shooting phase, Overwatch is at the end of the movement phase. Overwatch has already happened. This is a stratagem that needs to be sorted out for 11th edition. The whole detachment needs to be sorted out. But don't expect any changes to detachments within the Codex. If you want a better Brood Brothers Auxilia rule, there's not going to be a great refresh of rules. Only expect the new detachment shown off and an FAQ to bring some rules into line with next edition. Maybe that one stratagem will be fixed. But that might be all we get for the Brood Brothers Auxilia. It's not a balance patch. It's just to make the words work. The Recon team can have 4 special weapons. One of them can have an auto stubber, which is the same as a Genestealer Cult heavy stubber, but with 24-inch range rather than 36-inch range. You can have a plasma gun or a melter gun. I would go for a plasma gun. You can have a missile launcher and a loader. A loader is just a man with a las pistol. There's nothing about them having to be there to fire the missile launcher. The missile launcher isn't -1 to hit if the loader's not there. This isn't Conflict 47. It's a dude with a las pistol, but another dude has a missile launcher. Or you can have a sniper. Separate to that, you can have another sniper. So I would say an auto stubber, a plasma gun, a long las. Yeah, we'll have a Voxcaster, a missile launcher, and a las pistol loader. The rest of them have las guns. For the number of weapons you get, it's like a neophyte squad. 2 heavy weapons, 2 special weapons, but this squad is more expensive than neophytes. They're 80 points compared to a neophyte's 65 points. Las guns have assault, and you're probably thinking, oh wow, so what? Am I gonna run and gun but only fire a couple of las guns at people? It could be worth it to provide the detachment rule bonus. If an Astra Militarum unit shoots an enemy unit, and you're within 18 inches, and you do all of the other things the detachment rule requires, then your Genestealer Cult shooting is at +1 to hit against the enemy. This is likely to be more worth it as a detachment rule in 11th edition, because there is -1 ballistic skill if you're trying to shoot an enemy unit that's in cover. +1 to hit would sort of counter that. That's helpful for Genestealer Cult shooting, because we're not in the Host of Ascension, where we have ignore cover when we come from reserves, so we will ignore that -1 ballistic skill, and that assumes you're also not firing hand flamers, which ignore cover, and they're torrent, so they auto-hit, assuming that rules for torrent are the same in 11th edition. In 10th edition, it'll help your neophytes and your ridge runners and, say, your rock grinders to shoot better. The main job of the recon team will be to infiltrate. You're infiltrating 10 models at a cost 5 points higher than 5 pure strain Genestealers. Genestealers can kill enemy screens and other units that are set up to infiltrate. The recon team maybe can't. I think these will struggle to kill 5 Space Marine scouts. Genestealers are more likely to be able to kill them, but as 10 models, it's more area to take up. The standard practice for infiltrators is to stop the enemy infiltrating. If you get to set up a unit first, you string them out in a line across the middle of the board, and then the enemy cannot deploy in the middle of the board or within 9 inches of you. Standard Genestealer Cult practice then is to have a Primus redeploy the unit to somewhere that's actually useful after the deployment phase is done. You can't do that with the Recon Squad because the Primus can only redeploy Genestealer Cult keyword units. The Recon team keep their Astra Militarum and Imperium keywords. They don't get swapped out in 10th edition. The Recon Squad's a relatively cheap blocking unit. They're not going to last long. 10 guardsmen are pretty easy to take out. They have stealth, which makes it a little bit harder. What often happens is there's a small amount of shooting at them and that will kill 7 or 8 guardsmen. With stealth, maybe 4 of them survive. And then they can be useful in providing the detachment rule. It doesn't matter if you're battle shocked to provide the +1 to hit. If you go first with them, they could start doing actions, secondary missions, primary missions. It depends how soon in 11th edition you can start doing things in objective area terrain. If you can score that in turn 1. Usually they won't survive past turn 1. Whether you need them to do actions and things or not will depend on the force disposition that we get with the Brood Brothers Auxilia, or what force disposition we can get if we combine with other detachments that are 1 detachment point. The Brood Brothers Auxilia is assumed to be 2 detachment points, with 3 detachment point detachments being reserved for things that really help the entire army. Perhaps only Host of Ascension, or maybe not even Host of Ascension, will be 3 detachment points. I'm thinking Games Workshop could use the detachment points as a balance, have all of the Codex things be 2 detachment points, yes, even the Brood Brothers Auxilia, and then if a detachment is particularly strong, make it 3 detachment points so you can't add on another detachment to support it. The Cadian Recon Squad is another one of our potential screening and blocking units for the first turn. Stops first turn charges, or they become the target of the first turn charge rather than something more useful. 10 Catachans are cheaper, and they can scout, they're 65 points, but the Recon Squad does have better weapons if it came to actually doing some fighting. You're not limited to 2 flamers. Genestealer Pure Strains are part of the Genestealer Cult, so you can redeploy them with the Primus, and they're 5 points cheaper than the Recon Squad. Or another alternative is bikes, Atlan Jackals. You get more wounds with the Atlan Jackals than you do with the Recon Squad. It's 12 wounds compared to 10. The bikes have stealth, the Recon Squad has stealth. The bikes are toughness 4, the Recon Squad is toughness 3. The bikes can scout 9 inches, which puts them in basically the same position as an infiltrating unit. Most of the time your deployment zones are about 18 inches apart. The bikes can come back with resurgence points. The Recon Squad maybe can come back if you want to spend a command point on them, and that would be your one use of that stratagem for the entire game. Better to use it on Kazakin or a big squad of 20 Death Corps of Krieg. But bikes can't stop infiltrators. The Recon Squad can block enemy infiltrators, and if the enemy doesn't have any infiltrators, you could start them up the board in a pocket of safety and then get ready to score victory points in the first turn. So they have use. They have more use than at face value. But if you are playing Brood Brothers Auxilia and you skip them, that's not a problem. That's just more points for Bane Blades and Shadow Swords. Have a look at what other Imperial Guard units I recommend for the Brood Brothers Auxilia, and have a great day of 40k.